Welcome to Legacy Black of Power. 25 black musicians you'd never recognize today. What if I told you that Andre 3000, once a hip-hop legend, now strolls through airports in overalls, playing a flute like it's the most natural thing in the world? Fame doesn't just disappear. It morphs. It reinvents itself in ways you'd never expect. Today, we're diving into 25 black musicians whose transformations are so dramatic, you might not even recognize them anymore. Sananda Maitreya. Sananda Maitreya. Back in the late 80s, he came out of nowhere and lit the music world on fire. He had the look, the voice, the attitude, like a cross between a rock god and a soul preacher. Everything about him screamed superstar. He even boasted that his debut album was as groundbreaking as the Beatles. And for a moment, it really felt like it was. Awards, chart toppers, endless headlines, he was unstoppable. But success has a way of taking its toll. As the years rolled on, things got complicated. By the mid-90s, he was burned out, tired of the industry, tired of the image that made him famous. So, he did something radical. He declared his old self dead, shed his name, and was reborn, moving to Europe. He reinvented himself as Sananda Maitreya. No more chasing hits. No more bending to expectations. Instead, he made music on his own terms, raw, strange, poetic. The clean-cut pop star was gone. In his place stood a wandering artist with flowing hair, eccentric clothes, and a fierce determination to live authentically. Some fans thought he'd lost his mind. Others admired his courage. But to him, it didn't matter. For the first time in his career, he was finally free. And just when people thought reinvention couldn't get any wilder, the next legend on this list proved otherwise. Sly Stone. Sly Stone wasn't just a musician. He was a force of nature. In the late 60s and early 70s, he and his band lit the world on fire, fusing funk, rock, and soul into something the world had never heard before. They were trailblazers, a band of every race and gender, standing shoulder to shoulder, loud, proud, and unapologetically funky. Sly's look was just as bold as his sound. A towering afro, wild clothes, and sunglasses indoors. He was the definition of cool. But behind the glitter and groove, the cracks were already forming. As the 70s wore on, the music gave way to chaos, substances, reckless choices, and turmoil that tore his world apart. The band broke up. Sly disappeared. For years, fans didn't even know what he looked like, only catching rare, unsettling glimpses on TV. Gone was the fiery showman who once commanded the stage. In his place stood a man who seemed lost, aged before his time, his once electric presence dimmed to a flicker. It was painful to watch. Fame had chewed him up and spit him out. Yet, even as the man faded, the music never did. The genius was still there, buried under the wreckage, but undeniable. And if Sly's fall shocked you, just wait. The next artists didn't just lose themselves. They reinvented their entire identity, over and over again. Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill. When she first burst onto the scene, she had it all: style, talent, beauty, and brilliance. As part of a group, she conquered the world, then stepped out on her own and somehow soared even higher. Fans were hypnotized by her voice, her sharp rhymes, her effortless natural glow. With her dreadlocks, earthy clothes, and grounded presence, she felt like the girl next door, yet untouchable, almost otherworldly. But then, at the height of her success, she vanished. Lauryn didn't stop creating, but she no longer lived in the spotlight. And when she did reappear, she was transformed. One night she'd be wrapped in towering headscarves. Another night dressed in costumes that seemed ripped from a stage play or a dream. Her hair, her makeup, her aura. Everything shifted, as though she had stepped through a portal into another realm. Some fans barely recognized her. Others believed it was just another layer of her artistry, another skin she was shedding. Lauryn never looked back, never tried to reclaim her old image, never cared to fit in the box the industry built for her. Each appearance felt like a statement, a coded message only she could fully understand. She wasn't playing the crowd. She was preserving her art on her own terms. And while her metamorphosis was about evolving as an artist, the next story is about a transformation of a very different kind. One born not of reinvention, but falling from the heights of fame and struggling to rise again. MC Hammer, MC Hammer. There was a moment in the early 90s when you couldn't escape him. He was on your TV, blasting from your radio, even popping up in cartoons. Hammer wasn't just a rapper. He was the king of pop rap. His dance moves were lightning quick. His hooks, impossible to forget. And those pants, those giant, baggy Hammer pants, they weren't just a fashion statement. They were a whole cultural moment. His concerts were massive, his style louder than life, with a whole army of dancers tearing up the stage behind him. Hammer was energy, flash, and spectacle all rolled into one. But fame is a fragile crown. After a few blazing years at the top, the money dried up, the spotlight dimmed, and when he returned later, it wasn't the same. The oversized pants were gone. The big dance crews were gone. What remained was a man transformed. Quieter, older, more grounded, almost unrecognizable to fans who once worshipped him. Yet Hammer never truly disappeared. He just evolved. These days, he's more businessman than pop star, more preacher than performer. No flashy outfits, no over-the-top stage life. Just a man living real life, not chasing stage lights. And when he does turn the energy back on, you see glimpses of the legend he once was. His story isn't just about a look or a sound. It's about surviving the brutal cycle of rise, fall, and reinvention. Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown burst onto the scene young, smooth, and unstoppable. He was a teenage heartthrob every girl had a poster of, moving with slick confidence and singing with a voice that could melt stone. In his boy band days, he stood out immediately, but when he went solo, the real show began. Suddenly, he had swagger, bold haircuts, flashy outfits, an attitude that screamed, "I make my own rules." He wasn't just another singer. For a moment, he was the king of cool, but the crown came with chaos. Fame arrived fast, and so did the shadows. His high-profile marriage to a legendary diva turned into daily tabloid fodder. Fights, addictions, arrests, and scandals splashed across every headline. Over time, the charm that once made him untouchable began to fade. His face grew weary, his body changed, and the once unstoppable style became just memories of another era. Bobby transformed from superstar to survivor, and the world watched every stumble. Today, he looks like a man who's weathered storms most of us can't imagine. You'll still catch glimpses of him on TV or at concerts, but the Bobby Brown of yesterday, the smooth, untamed showman, can be hard to recognize in the softer, older figure standing now. Still, he's here, still enduring. And just when you think you've seen transformation, wait until you hear what happened to the pretty boy from the DeBarge family. DeBarge. DeBarge once lit up every stage and screen with that angelic falsetto and boyish smile that seemed too perfect to fade. He was the golden face of his family band, the soft-spoken heartthrob with the silky hair and effortless charm. Women swooned. Radio stations couldn't get enough, and everything about him shined like it was straight out of a dream. But behind that flawless image, the storm was already building. led the group and later tried to carve his own path as a solo star, but the journey turned rocky. Addiction wrapped its claws around him, and run-ins with the law followed close behind. At times, he disappeared from the spotlight entirely, only to reemerge looking like a stranger to his own fans. His once glowing face now thinner, his eyes carrying the weight of too many battles, the sparkle replaced with shadows. Years of struggle etched lines no makeup could hide. And yet, he never gave up. Fought his way back, time and again, proving that his voice still had the power to soar even when life tried to silence him. Still, the contrast between the dazzling L of the 80s and the hardened man of today is almost unrecognizable. Two lives divided by pain and resilience. If you haven't followed his journey, you'd barely believe it's the same man. But while L's transformation came from scars of survival, the next artist on our list rewrote her image by choice, changing her look over and over again, never settling for just one face. Jody Watley. Jody Watley has always been more than a singer. She's been a style icon. Even before her solo career took off, she was turning heads with oversized earrings, bold makeup, and dance moves that lit up the stage. From the moment she hit it big, Jody wasn't just performing music. She was rewriting the fashion playbook. Trendy, edgy, and fearless, she never stood still. One year, she was pure glam, the next sporty chic, then sleek sophistication, and before you knew it, futuristic. You could never predict her next move, and that was her power. She didn't age out of fashion. Fashion chased her. Today, her look is nothing like the girl from those flashy 80s videos. And that's the point. Jody was never about standing still. She was about evolution. If you're searching for the 1987 Jody Watley, you won't find her. What you'll find is a woman who's grown, reinvented herself again and again, and refused to get trapped in the past. That's why people still respect her. She's not hiding. She's just always one step ahead. But think about this. What if you barely even saw an artist's face, and all you ever really knew was the sound of their voice echoing through clubs around the world? CeeLo Peniston. Back in the 90s, CeeLo Peniston's voice was everywhere. You couldn't step into a club without hearing her powerhouse vocals, full of joy, fire, and soul that didn't just hit your ears, it hit your spirit. Her sound was unforgettable. But unlike pop stars who lived on magazine covers, Cece's face never became the centerpiece. Everyone knew the voice, but not always the woman behind it. And that anonymity made her easier to fade from memory, at least visually. She never stopped making music. She kept pushing, stayed in the game. But without the constant flash of cameras or media chasing her every move, the public stopped seeing her as often as they once did. Now, decades later, CeeLo looks different, as anyone would with time. She's older, wiser, still brimming with talent. Yet for fans who only remember her from a music video in the early 90s, seeing her today can feel like a shock. Not because she looks bad, but because the image people froze in their minds never aged with her. When CeeLo steps out now, that first glance brings a jolt of surprise. It's a reminder that time keeps moving, even if our memories stand still. She never chased the spotlight the way others did. She let her voice do the work. And that voice, strong as ever, still proves why she mattered then and why she still matters now. And the next artist? He took an entirely different path, from R&B royalty to the pulpit of a church. Montell Jordan. Montell Jordan wasn't just tall and smooth. He was a soundtrack to every party in the mid-90s. With model good looks, effortless swagger, and a voice that could light up any room, he had the world dancing. His style was sharp, his vibe was chill, and his cool was the kind people try to imitate. For a moment in time, Montell was that guy, the one who knew exactly how to set the mood just right. But the party didn't last forever. After a run of hits, he made a choice few saw coming. He walked away from the spotlight, not out of failure, but out of faith, trading flashing lights for church lights. He became a pastor and remade his life completely. Today, you won't see him in music videos dripping in designer gear. You'll find him on a church stage, singing different songs, preaching peace, and carrying himself with a quiet strength. The voice is still there, rich as ever, but the image is transformed. Pass him on the street, and you'd never guess he once ruled the dance floor. And as we move to our final artist, she too once commanded the spotlight with the full force of a diva's glow in the 80s and 90s. But like everyone else on this list, time and life changed everything. Karyn White. Karyn White had everything it took to be a superstar: strength, style, and undeniable fierceness. On camera, she radiated royalty. Her voice carried that rare blend of softness and power that could stop anyone in their tracks. And when she performed, she embodied perfection. Flawless hair, glamorous outfits, and eyes that spoke nothing but confidence. Then at the height of it all, she stepped away. She chose real life over the spotlight, dedicating herself to raising a family. But when Karyn returned, it wasn't to chase the past. It was to write her own future. Independent, unstoppable, and unapologetically herself. That's what makes her story unforgettable. And next, we move to someone who owned the pretty boy crown of the 90s, but what he looks like today will absolutely shock you. I'll be sure. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, he was a smooth operator every girl had a crush on. With that pretty boy face, velvety voice, and a style that turned heads, he became one of the defining figures of the New Jack Swing era. Even that trademark unibrow, and slick hair became part of his signature look. But it wasn't just about charm. He was a full package. He sang, wrote, produced, and carried himself like a star who knew exactly who he was. But time has a way of humbling even the brightest stars. Today, he's older, more reserved, no longer chasing the spotlight with the same fire. Unless you've kept up with his journey, you might not even recognize him if he walked past you. The man who once ruled the airwaves with undeniable swagger is still here, but now he carries a quieter presence, a reminder of how fame fades, even for those who once burned the brightest. Kid Rock, back in the late 80s. Kid Rock rocked a look you couldn't ignore. That high-top fade was so tall it practically scraped the ceiling. And it wasn't just a haircut. It was a cultural moment all on its own. His style, paired with his wild energy and his partner's charisma, had people dancing in clubs and laughing in theaters. But it was that sky-high hair that stole the spotlight. Everyone talked about it. Everyone copied it. For a while, it felt like the fade was just as famous as the man himself. But nothing lasts forever. Kid eventually traded in the skyscraper cut for shorter styles, clean trims, bald looks, more grown man vibes. He didn't vanish, he evolved. The music, the cameos, the presence. It was all still there, only now, without that legendary hair. He was almost unrecognizable. The guy who once stopped traffic with a single silhouette looked like a whole different man. And if you think Kid's transformation is wild, wait until you see what became of his partner in rhyme. Christopher Martin. Christopher Martin, better known as Play, was always the cooler, quieter counterpoint to Kid. He didn't need to be loud to stand out. His fade was razor sharp, his moves crisp, and together, Kid and Play became the life of every party. They brought fun to hip-hop, matching outfits, playful rhymes, and an energy that defined an era. Clean-cut, fresh, full of personality. They were the guys everyone wanted to roll with. But that was then. Time has a way of reshaping even the biggest stars. Play eventually stepped away from the spotlight, trading in bright lights for new paths. Teaching, creating, and reflecting. The flashy gear disappeared. The signature hair? Gone. What remained was a man with wisdom in his eyes, carrying himself more like a professor than a party king. And honestly, that evolution isn't a loss, it's growth. Still, if you only remember the old school vibe, you might not even recognize him today. He went from hyping the crowd to guiding the next generation. But while Play transformed, another story was unfolding. The rise of a woman bold enough to claim her place in hip-hop at a time when almost no women dared to. Roxanne Shante. Roxanne Shante didn't just step into hip-hop. She stormed it like a hurricane. Young, fearless, and razor-sharp, she came straight out of Queensbridge with rhymes that hit like punches. She rocked tracksuits, flashed gold chains, and carried herself like a boss long before the title was cool. Shante wasn't just playing the game. She was laying the foundation brick by brick. But then life shifted. The music slowed, and she stepped back to focus on herself. Time passed. Styles changed. She evolved. Today, she's not the teenage battle queen anymore. She's a grown woman with a different kind of fire. The energy is still there, but it's refined, mature, unstoppable in its own way. She doesn't need to chase youth or dress like she's still 15. Her presence alone commands a room. And if you think her glow-up is inspiring, just wait until you see what became of the man who once begged his way into every R&B fan's heart. Keith Sweat. Keith Sweat wasn't just another R&B singer. He was the undisputed king of slow jams. That voice of his, it was like he was crying and seducing you at the same time. A sound so unique it could melt a crowd in seconds. Always dressed sharp in flawless suits, flashing that confident smile, and rocking hair so perfect it looked sculpted. Keith had it all. Women adored him, men imitated him, and for a while he owned the game. But no love song, no matter how timeless, can stop the clock. Decades rolled by, and Keith kept pushing, still touring, still dropping music, still proving he belonged. The voice stayed the same, but the look evolved. The polished, picture-perfect style gave way to something more natural, more seasoned. The oversized suits turned casual. The sculpted hair gave way to simpler cuts. He wasn't the fresh-faced star on the album covers anymore, but veteran who had grown into a new chapter of himself. And yet, compared to another frontman of his era, whose transformation was even more drastic, Keith's journey feels almost subtle. Fans are still trying to wrap their heads around just how far that other story goes. Aaron Hall didn't just sing. He attacked every note like it was a battle. His voice wasn't just smooth, it was thunderous, gospel-charged, and it hit you straight in the chest like a preacher set on fire. As the frontman of that bold New Jack Swing movement, he carried himself with a swagger that demanded attention. Picture it. Wild blonde high-top fade, sometimes dyed red, sharp tailored suits, and an energy that screamed, "Step up only if you can keep up." But time leaves its mark. Today, Aaron looks like a man who's weathered storms, victories, and heartbreak. He still commands a stage, still has that magnetic presence, but the years tell their story in his face and his voice. If you remember the electrifying blonde firebrand of the early 90s, you might do a double take seeing him now. And yet, the next artist on this list didn't need a catalog of hits to be unforgettable. Just one explosive anthem that burned his name into history before he disappeared from the spotlight. Mark Morrison. Mark Morrison. If you were around in the mid-90s, you couldn't escape him. He stormed out of the UK like he owned the whole stage. That smooth yet cocky voice, the strut, the attitude. He carried himself like he had just stepped out of a James Bond film. Always rocking shades, a slick jacket, and that face that practically shouted, "Yeah, I'm back." And then, just as fast, he wasn't. One song blew up everywhere. Radio, clubs, countdown shows, you name it, it was there. But when the noise faded, so did Mark, at least for most people. Back home in the UK, he kept grinding, still making music. But the headlines weren't about his tracks anymore. They were about legal trouble and drama that pushed him out of the spotlight. Time has a way of changing how we remember someone. After decades out of limelight, most people wouldn't even recognize him today. The shades are still there, but the swagger's toned down. The hair's different, the face older, the energy more low-key. Yet drop that one track in a club right now and watch the whole room light up, word for word. The real question is, if he walked through that same room, would anyone even know it was him? And Mark Morrison isn't the only UK artist from the 90s who once ruled a wave, only to come back years later looking like a completely different story. Maxi Priest. Maxi Priest wasn't just another singer. He was the R&B reggae heartthrob for anyone who craved smooth over rough. His voice was like summer itself, warm, breezy, and filled with love, carrying the sound of ocean waves and long nights under the stars. Every song he sang dripped with feeling, yet all seemed so effortless, like music was simply part of soul. Add to that his long, flowing dreadlocks, sharp fashion sense, and that easy, gentle smile, and Maxi had the full package. He wasn't just noticed, he was unforgettable. But fame was never his obsession. Instead of chasing the spotlight forever, Maxi chose to stay true to his craft, touring, recording, and building real connections with fans, even if it wasn't always on the world's biggest stages. Over time, his fire softened into something more soulful, more personal. And as Maxi kept moving forward, the next artist in line would face an even heavier challenge, one that no charm or talent could escape. The harsh reality of health struggles that would change everything. Toni Braxton. Toni Braxton didn't just sing love songs, she made you live them. Her voice, deep and velvet rich, could shatter your heart one moment and piece it back together the next. In the 90s, she reigned supreme, platinum records, Grammy wins, and every red carpet graced with her presence like a true queen. Her signature pixie cut became iconic, her style bold, elegant, and daring enough to spark headlines. She was the definition of the total package. But behind the glitter and glory, Toni was fighting battles the spotlight never showed. If you haven't followed her journey, you might not even recognize the woman she's become today. She's evolved, endured, and emerged stronger, yet transformed in ways that still catch people off guard. And just when you think her image couldn't shift any further, along comes a man who built his entire career on turning reinvention into an art form. CeeLo Green. CeeLo Green. Yeah, the guy with the wild voice and even wilder outfits. But don't get it twisted. He didn't always look like a walking costume party. Once upon a time, he was just a kid from Atlanta with raw talent and a sound bigger than the room he sang in. Then came the break. Teaming up with the right producer, he dropped a track that didn't just climb the charts. It took over the world. From that moment on, CeeLo wasn't just making music. He was making a statement. Robes, oversized shades, outrageous hats. Every appearance was a new character. One day he was a space alien, the next a chef, a judge, even a mischievous schoolboy. If you only knew him from the flashy stages and over-the-top videos, you might not even recognize him in the grocery store aisle. But don't let the glitter fool you. The power is still there, always has been. You just have to look past the costumes to see it. And with that, we close this wild ride through makeovers, glow-ups, and jaw-dropping transformations. But trust me, there are still plenty more faces you won't recognize coming your way. D'Angelo. Remember when he reigned as the king of neo-soul? Those bedroom eyes, that sculpted six-pack, and a voice that could melt the air. It was the entire vibe of the early 2000s. He was unstoppable until suddenly he wasn't. One day, he just vanished. No new music, no red carpets, nothing. Gone like smoke in the wind. At first, D'Angelo was a quiet, mysterious figure who didn't need to shout. His music said it all, smooth, deep, and dripping with soul. But the weight of fame pressed hard. So he walked away, and for more than a decade, the world barely saw him. And when he finally did come back, people were stunned. The chiseled abs were gone. In their place stood a heavier frame, a rugged beard, a man carrying a whole different energy. Some fans are confused. But then he opened his mouth to sing, and just like that, the magic returned. His comeback wasn't about being a sex symbol anymore. It was about raw soul, stripped of gloss. And here's the twist. He's not the only one who turned mysterious. The next artist traded the spotlight for a hoodie and a flute. Andre 3000. Andre 3000. Born Andre Benjamin. But to the world, he was always the wild card of hip-hop. Wigs, kilts, neon colors. He turned every stage into a fashion runway you couldn't predict. And the music? Just as fearless. He didn't follow the rules. He rewrote them. But the Andre we see today is a different kind of legend. Now you'll catch him wandering through random cities, not with Mike, but with a flute in hand. From platinum albums and electrifying outfits to overalls and quiet jam sessions in airports or coffee shops, Andre has traded the spotlight for solitude. He doesn't drop music often, but when he does appear, the world still stops to listen. He's no longer chasing charts or trends. He's living like a hip-hop monk, calmer, older, wiser. The flamboyant Andre still lingers beneath the surface, but today's version is softer, more mysterious. And maybe that's why people can't look away. Because every legend who fades into silence only makes the world wonder, what story is still left untold? Tracy Chapman. Tracy Chapman carried a face of quiet intensity, a guitar that felt like an extension of her soul, and a voice that could shatter your heart and mend it in the same breath. She emerged in the late 80s like a storm you didn't see coming, sweeping across the world not with flash or spectacle, but with truth. Fame never seduced her. Headlines didn't matter. When she stepped away, she vanished completely. For years, she became a ghost, living in the shadows while her music kept breathing on its own. Tracy was never about the noise. She was about the message. While others chased the spotlight, she chose silence. And when she reappeared in 2024, the world was stunned. Time had marked her face. It had been more than 3 decades, but her voice? Still powerful, still haunting, still tender. The same calm, thoughtful energy wrapped in wisdom and grace. Fans who hadn't seen her since the 80s were moved to tears by the transformation. She had aged out of sight, but never out of memory. And just when you think her return was a quiet kind of change, brace yourself. Because next comes the story of the gold-draped dance hall star who ruled the 90s with unapologetic fire. Shabba Ranks. Back in the 90s, Shabba Ranks wasn't just loud. He was larger than life. His voice rumbled deep. His lyrics were bold and unapologetic in his style. Pure fire. Gold teeth flashing, shades on, dressed in wild, unforgettable fits. He was a king of dancehall, and you couldn't miss him even if you tried. The beats made the world move. But behind those dark glasses was a man carving out his own legend. And then came the next chapter. By the 80s, he had already earned the title of Mr. Smooth. Today, he still carries that same star power, but now with silver in his hair, shining just as bright. Billy Ocean. Billy Ocean was the definition of cool. The voice, the swagger, the sharp suits, everything about him radiated polish and star power. In the 80s, he dominated the charts with hit after hit, gliding across the stage with effortless moves that cemented his place as a true pop icon. Always sharp, always ready for the spotlight. Today, the jet black hair has given way to silver, but the shine hasn't dimmed one bit. Billy is still out there, touring the world, belting out the classics, and giving fans the time of their lives. If your memory of him is frozen in the neon glow of the 80s, seeing him now might leave you stunned. He's in his 70s, his face carrying the marks of time, his wardrobe more relaxed, but the charm, the presence, and that unmistakable voice remain untouched. Billy no longer needs flashy outfits or polished images to prove who he is. His legacy does all the talking. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps me motivated to bring you even more amazing content.